Hi folks, it's Tim, aka Turbo BB, with yet another flashlight review. So, as some of you are probably wondering, with the recent onslaught of multi-emitter XMLs, where has Sunwayman been? So, wonder no more, they finally entered the fray with their T60CS that features tri-XMLs, and it arrived in this box here. In an effort to save time, I already took out the light. So, this is a very early either engineering sample or a finalized production. I'm not sure yet, so I have that inquiry into Sunwayman, and I'll put that into my review. Now it does feature 3 XML U2s. It's got the patented charging system, multifunction soft contact switch, which they call the smart switch, and a unique power supply system, which I believe actually means the carrier. So the light came in this plastic bag. There are 2 spare O-rings and a lanyard, and this holster. Okay, get that out of the way, and now we get into the T60CS. Now, this light actually was first posted on the internet on CPF by a fellow forum member. I'm assuming it's pronounced Gopati, G-O-P-A-J-T-I. Apologies if that's mispronounced, but you can feel free to speak up in my review. Alright, so right off the bat, still the standard stainless steel bezel, double-sided AR coated lens, and as you can see, those tri-XMLs, which are actually situated in a relatively shallow reflector, so this will be a very floody light, as you can see in my beam shots in my review. Now, comparing it to the V60C, as you can see, the V60C featured a very deep reflector geared totally towards throw. So I'm going to just put my thumbs where the battery tube ends and line up the head to give you an idea of just how much deeper that reflector is. Of course, there is also the variable control system here, so that does add some length to it, but again, as you can see, very, very shallow reflector. Now, tube-wise, the design motif has changed. So when you look at the V60C, you say, hey, instantly you'll recognize a lot of these as being Sunwayman or perhaps even JetBeam, but as you know, they're the same designer. Features some texturing here, as well as these fluid channels, this oblong here hole for the lanyard attachment, and the negative and positive paths for the charging system. Right now, while the T60CS does also feature that, the design style has changed a bit, and likewise, there are now these grooves here that runs around the light itself with all of these footings here. It's got a more, I guess, squarish design theme to it, edgier. Okay, it's got 3 heating fans, or 2 actually in the middle here, surrounded by the ends. And again, like I said, it's got this grooved edges in here. Okay, laser engravings, all very, very sharp, and quality-wise, it's just typical Sunwayman. Alright, so we're going to dive into the UI now. It's all controlled by the smart switch system, but before we get to this, I'm actually going to bring out the T40CS because that smart switch was actually first featured on this light. Except the difference is that there is a master on-off switch here that controls it light. So this solely controls the on-off, does not control the output levels. That's all governed through the smart switch. So with the light on, if you press and hold the smart switch, it'll cycle through the modes. Okay, high, medium, low in this case, and at any point if you double click, it'll enter strobe instantly. Double click again to enter SOS mode, and double click again to enter back into strobe, and to disengage, shut off the light, turn back on the light. Alright, now while that smart switch was first featured on the T40CS, the UI itself was actually first featured on T20C, except just not in smart switch form, but rather a sort of like a piston drive. So single click is instant on, single click again is instant off. Press and hold to cycle through the modes when the light is on, low, medium, high in this case. And as with the other UIs, double click to enter strobe, double click again to enter, to exit out of it. So this one actually, at the time, it's been a while since I've handled this light, doesn't actually have a SOS mode. Okay, Now with the T60CS, does feature the same battery carrier first featured on the V60C. Did notice that the version number is a little bit different, so I'm not sure what changes were incurred to the battery carrier. I will find out and put that into my review. And as usual, I intentionally picked the XR18700s because they are the longest batteries in my arsenal currently, and I want to ensure that they do fit, and they do, although very, very tight, with pretty much literally no more tolerance for additional millimeter. Now, as with the V60C, if you're not already familiar, this battery carrier has redundant paths for both the positive and negative halves, so that's repeated on this end, so it doesn't matter which way you stick it into the light, as long as you do insert the batteries in the correct polarity, the rest will take care of itself, right? And as with the V60C, I'm not sure if you can really see that, but there's actually a center spring as well as just a negative rim out there, down there. I'm going to go ahead and insert that in, get this started. It does feature a positive spring tip here. In case you're wondering, yes, the heads are interchangeable. The threads fit exactly the same as on the V60C. So I'm going to hit into the output modes now. Alright, this actually has 4 levels. It's got turbo, and then you cycle through high, medium, low. And as with the other lights in the family, double click at any time to enter strobe, and as with the T40CS, double click again to enter SOS mode. Double click again to re-engage strobe, shut it off to disengage out of it, and then another single click to turn the light on, single click to turn the light off. So because it is an electronic switch, there will be a minute amount of current draw. I'll get the exact figures in my review for you. Did wanted to also draw your attention to this little LED here. This is the low voltage indicator, and it comes on at certain set thresholds. I don't know the exact details, but Big Mac 79 actually reviewed that as part of the T20CS, which I believe was the first time it was first featured on a Sunwayman light. So if you haven't already, please read his review. You will be able to capture the exact details, and as well as in mine when I get to flesh it out. Now, before I end this review, I did want to mention that because it is the same base, it is fully compatible with the V60C's charging system. These batteries are relatively freshly topped off, so obviously this is not going to engage, but again, it's just to illustrate the point that it is fully compatible. I've confirmed that with Sunwayman. So if you've already owned one, lucky for you, you've got a charging base to use. Now, before one final thing, that I did want to draw out was that out of all of the Tri-XML lights, this probably compares most favorably with the Nikkor TM11. Now in my beam shots you will see that the T60CS actually has a slightly larger hotspot and yet even brighter spill. In quick initial measurements, I've actually received 2500 plus lumens on the T60CS, but again, I'll get exact details in my forthcoming review. As you can see, they both feature the same shallow reflectors, and size-wise, it's just a tad bit longer. Got a 4-cell light versus a 3-cell light. Okay, slightly chunkier, again because it's 4-cell versus 3. So, but again, size-wise, it compares very favorably with it. Alright, so hopefully you found this review summary helpful, and thanks again for watching. And as part of FCC disclosures, the T60CS was provided by Sunwayman for review. Cheers.